I wanted to do the last video for this particular day because there was something I was contemplating or thinking about that is really important for those that are seeking the truth, wanting to know who to trust in terms of data or information. And as I mentioned in a previous video, for example, because Robert David Steele has a fairly large audience and he is connected to the intelligence or the data collection community with the NSA, the CIA, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So one of the words that he uses, and it's important because he's read my commentary on his own YouTube channel in the past, and that deals with experiencing data. So that means experiencing the data integrity. So experiencing the data has a frequency. So when the data represents what love is, which is what light is, that's the honor and the integrity of the data that's being presented. Okay? So that means the data that I represent, which is what I run on, runs on a frequency standard. I kick out any data that doesn't represent as a minimum frequency, which is a first law nation Indian, is what love is. So I measure the data by frequency. Okay? It has to meet a benchmark standard by the core frequency vibration identity of the data transfer or the data communicator. What is the frequency of the individual that is presenting the data? That's data integrity in the cosmos. Okay? So I run on a completely different set of data, which is pure light, which is pure unconditional love and living spirit. Okay? That's living DNA. So the data that's in the living DNA, which represents the data that is in all the chromosomes that were put there by a goddess. She's another living spirit. She is a great living spirit that is in this planet. I run on her motherboard. Okay? We all know what a motherboard is. Okay? So I run on her data transfer because I can trust the girl on the planet. Okay? So when she communicates to me, I'm experiencing her data, which is her energy, which is her communication and living spirit. That's straightforward and the absolute truth because it's her classroom. It's her planet. Okay? So I'm going to leave you with that. But here's another thing you might want to think about because this is about honor and integrity, which is data integrity. Okay? And this deals with what's now happening, if you will, in the truth community. Because you have the New Earth Project, which is with Sasha Stone, and his sort of cadre of people that he associates with. Okay? And then you have Robert David Steele, who's sort of a part of that group. Okay? And then, of course, you have Project Camelot, which is Carrie Cassidy, okay, of which she interviews an enormous amount of whistleblowers trying to do what? Present data, present the information, trying to put the puzzle together, okay? And then, of course, you have Basis Project, which is Miles Johnson, okay? So what happens is that when I look at all these videos and all these presenters of all this data, because Christ only knows, although I don't live through Christ in order to be what it is that I am, which is what love is and living spirit, which is eternal, which means I don't need to go through somebody else in order to be what I already am, which is forever. Okay? So let me dismiss that off the other side. Those that want to do that, that's certainly their free will to do that, which means they're externalizing what is already internal to them, which means the universe of creation already exists within you. So when you are what love is, which is what light is in living spirit, then you're in alignment with Source. The source from which all light and all love come. Because that's what I experience. So I experience through my heart, which is where all the light is. So I thought about this because this is going to fracture. What's coming out now is going to fracture. And it's supposed to fracture the elements of those that are presenting themselves as truth tellers and who it is they're putting up with the data that they're putting up that's now being exposed by the light. So I mean this in no disrespect to Robert David Steele, but this is a liability that you carry when you put certain people on there that are now being exposed by other truth tellers that represent the light, who look at all the data. So in other words, there's the data that you look at and experience, and then there's other data processors or other research guys who look at the data and they present the data. So now you have Paladin, who I happen to know is truthful and honorable and lives with integrity. He's not going to present to you something that doesn't represent what he knows to be true based on the data that he's experiencing, because he understands the direction that we're going in. Okay? Which just means, can I trust the word that you're saying? Okay? That means I tell the truth because I live with love in my heart. Because you operate off the data. So when I realized that Paladin was essentially exposing, okay, Charlie Freak and Charlie Ward, because he exposed the fraudulency in the quantum financial system by documents that he looked at and showed were not legit. So when Robert David Steele put somebody up like Charlie Ward, presenting him as if this information is valid, okay, or just putting the information up, if people have value, or if you will, honor, and want to believe in Robert David Steele, because Robert David Steele is putting somebody up who's presenting data, so therefore if they believe in Robert David Steele, so therefore that means they can believe in the data presented by the person that David Steele is presenting through his own channel that is found out to be what? Fraudulent. So that by extension will turn people off by realizing that Robert David Steele is putting up a data presenter or somebody who is presenting data that turns out to be false. So do you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater? So what you have with Paladin, which was a video I watched last night, which was he wanted to correct the record. Paladin was honorable enough to correct the record. Okay? That's an honorable person. Okay? Therefore, I will honor that being because the truth matters most to that being. So he's correcting the data. Okay? How many people do you know that are willing to do that and exercise that kind of humility? That means he doesn't run on a service to self-ego, which means it's not about him, it's about everybody. Because we realize the direction we're wanting to go, which is to eliminate that which we've been held captive to, which is parasites. Now, this is not to say that I don't believe that Robert David Steele doesn't want to experience that. Okay? But what this is going to do is it's going to lie in question the integrity of the data that Robert David Steele is presenting through his channel. Okay? Because I knew, because I experienced Charlie Ward and I experienced Charlie Freak, and I knew not to trust their data. Why is that? Because I run on a higher density consciousness than they do. I run through the girl and the planet. So one of the ways in which I sort of discern the truth is I want to look at the identity of the data presenter, the carnival barker. Okay? When I identify myself as an Indian, an AB positive bloodline Indian that belongs to White Bear Clan, which means I'm native to this planet. Okay? I know the frequency that I run. I know the classroom that I'm in. I know who the teacher is in this classroom. So I'm telling you the truth. How many beings of these presenters, okay, identify themselves? What they do is they simply give you their name, their education, and their background. That's it. What's conspicuous in its absence is they never talk about her. They never talk about this planet ship being a classroom. They never talk about, I'm a native Indian. I'm native to this realm. My bloodline is such and such, such and such. Because in order for us to know your identity, so that you're not an alien, which means you're not native to this realm, then I realize that your interest and my interest as an Indian might be different. Because there are First Law Nation Indians, and that means we are the sovereign, lawful authority on this planet. That's why aliens are second law. Because they're primitive. Okay? So it's important to know the distinction between who is giving you the information. If the native tribes and the Gaia shamans are giving you the information, then you can trust the information. Because first law Indians live by first law, which is what love is the law, which is what light is, which is what love is in living spirit. Okay? They don't identify themselves that way. We do. That's how you know the difference between the data and the presenter. And that doesn't mean that there is data that they have that I have that isn't correct. So now you got to peruse through all the data. So what does the data represent? A timeline. Okay? So you got to know the timeline that you're on, whether it's higher density consciousness or lower density consciousness, because we're dissolving the lower density consciousness. So you want to be on a higher timeline. That's the truth. That's what I give you. Okay? So I figured it was important for me to distinguish the difference between the data and what the truth is, and the difference in the density consciousness of who is expressing the data and the information to you. I'll leave you with that to think about forever, because that's who we are in living spirit.